On this particular morning at The View, just 2 days after his Oscar triumph, Joy Behar decided that Michael B. Jordan's crowning achievement needed to be questioned, dissected, and diminished. She came armed with theories about vampire movies and convenient timing and whether he really deserved to stand among the greats he had thanked. What she didn't expect was that the man who had just reached the pinnacle of his profession had been preparing for skeptics his entire life. She thought she would expose some cracks in his golden moment. Instead, she would be the one to crumble. Subscribe and drop a comment below, because what you're about to witness is a masterclass in how to defend your legacy without ever losing your composure. The View studio felt electric when Michael B. Jordan walked onto the set. The Oscar buzz was still fresh, the clips from his emotional acceptance speech still circulating on every platform. At 39 years old, he had achieved what many thought would never happen. The action star, the pretty boy, the guy who took his shirt off. He had silenced every critic with a single golden statue. His journey to this moment had started over 20 years ago on The Wire, where at just 15 years old, he had played Wallace, the young drug dealer whose death remains one of the most devastating moments in television history. That performance had announced him to the world as someone special. From there, Friday Night Lights, Chronicle, and then the collaborations with Ryan Coogler that would define his career. Fruitvale Station, Creed, Black Panther, each role building toward this moment. Each performance proving that the pretty face contained depths that most people refused to see. His smile was warm but carried something new, a quiet confidence that came from finally being recognized at the highest level. Whoopi Goldberg practically ran to embrace him. Sarah Haynes wiped tears from her eyes before he even sat down. The audience gave him a standing ovation that lasted nearly a minute. Even Joy Behar clapped, though her smile seemed slightly strained, her eyes calculating. Michael B. Jordan, Oscar winner, welcome to The View, Whoopi announced, her voice thick with emotion. We are so proud of you. So proud. Thank you, Whoopi. This has been the most surreal week of my life. I'm still processing it, honestly. That speech, Sarah said, leaning forward. When you thanked Sidney Poitier, Denzel Washington, all those legends. I was sobbing. The whole country was sobbing. Michael's expression grew serious for a moment. Those names mean everything to me. I stand on their shoulders. Every black actor who came before me, who fought battles I'll never have to fight, they made this possible. I wanted to honor that. Speaking of honor, Joy interjected, and there was something in her tone that made the warmth in the room drop by several degrees. Let's talk about Sinners. A vampire movie. You won the Oscar for playing vampires in the Jim Crow South. Don't you think some people might question whether that's really Oscar-worthy material? It's not exactly Schindler's List. The question landed like a cold splash of water on what had been a celebratory moment. Michael's smile faded slightly, but his composure remained intact. I think the Academy voters, who are industry professionals, decided it was Oscar-worthy. That's kind of how the process works, Joy. But you have to admit, the Academy has been criticized for trying to be more inclusive in recent years. Some people wonder if your win was about the performance or about checking certain boxes. The accusation was barely veiled. Sarah's mouth actually fell open. Whoopi's expression hardened into something dangerous. But Michael remained calm, his voice steady. Let me make sure I understand what you're asking. You're suggesting that the Academy gave me the highest honor in our industry not because of my performance, but because of my race. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm asking questions that people at home might be thinking. Are they? Or are you thinking them and projecting that onto an imaginary audience? The counter was precise and devastating. Joy's face flushed slightly. I'm simply pointing out that Sinners was a horror film, a genre film. Historically, those don't win Best Actor. So people are naturally curious about why this one did. Michael leaned forward, and there was something in his eyes now that suggested Joy had made a serious miscalculation. Let me tell you about Sinners, since you seem to have reduced it to a vampire movie. It's a film about two black brothers returning to the Jim Crow South after World War I, trying to build something in a world that doesn't want them to exist. The vampires aren't just monsters. They're a metaphor for the predatory systems that fed on black communities for centuries. The supernatural horror mirrors the real horror of what black Americans endured. He paused, letting that sink in. I play twins, two completely different people with the same face. Smoke is charming, optimistic, believes in redemption. Stack is hardened, cynical, carries the weight of everything they've survived. I had to create two distinct human beings and make audiences believe they were watching two different actors. That's not genre work. That's craft. But it's still fundamentally an entertainment film, joy-pressed, not a serious drama about serious issues. What's more serious than black survival in America? What's more dramatic than two brothers trying to protect their community from forces that want to destroy them? Just because there are vampires doesn't mean the themes aren't real. Get Out had horror elements. It was nominated for Best Picture. Jordan Peele won for Best Original Screenplay. Did you question the validity of that? Joy shifted uncomfortably. That was different. How? How was it different? Because you'd already decided that my work doesn't qualify for the same consideration? The studio was absolutely silent now. Michael hadn't raised his voice. He was dismantling Joy's argument with surgical precision, and everyone watching could see it happening. Let's talk about the actual performance, Michael continued. For 6 months, I studied twins. Real twins. How they moved differently despite looking identical. How their voices carried different rhythms. How their experiences shaped them into separate people. I worked with dialect coaches to give Smoke and Stack distinct speech patterns from the 1930s Mississippi Delta. I changed my physical movement, my posture, my energy for each character. He leaned back, remembering the process. There were days on set where I would play Smoke in the morning and Stack in the afternoon. I had to completely reset my entire being between takes. Different walk, different way of holding my shoulders, different relationship to eye contact. Smoke looks at people directly because he believes in connection. Stack looks past people because he's always scanning for threats. Those details matter. They're what make two characters feel like two different human beings instead of one actor with a costume change. He looked directly at Joy. Ryan Coogler and I have been working together for over a decade now. This is our 5th film. He knows what I'm capable of, and he pushes me beyond what I think is possible. For Sinners, he told me, I need you to make people forget they're watching the same person. That became my mission. Every day on set, that was the standard. He paused. 16 Oscar nominations, the most in Academy history. 4 wins including Best Original Screenplay for Ryan, Best Cinematography for Autumn Durald-Arkapaw, the first woman ever to win that award. $370 million at the box office. And you want to reduce all of that to a vampire movie that won because of identity politics? That's not journalism, Joy. That's dismissal. Joy tried to regain her footing. I'm not dismissing anything. I'm asking whether the timing was convenient. This was supposed to be Timothée Chalamet's year. Everyone expected him to win for Marty Supreme. Some people are saying you benefited from a split vote, from voters wanting to make a statement. A statement about what? About diversity, about representation, about giving the award to a black actor because it's been a while since one won in that category. Michael laughed, but there was no humor in it. Forrest Whitaker, 2007, Jamie Foxx, 2005, Denzel Washington, 2002, Will Smith, 2022. You want to know what those performances have in common? They were undeniable. The actors made it impossible to give the award to anyone else. That's what I did. I gave a performance that 3,000 Academy members watched and said, that's the one. Not because of my race, because of my work. He straightened in his chair. And by the way, Timothée Chalamet was one of the first people to stand up and applaud when my name was announced. Leonardo DiCaprio hugged me for a full minute backstage. Benicio del Toro kissed my hand. Those men, my competitors, showed more grace in that moment than you're showing right now. They understood that we were all doing the work, and one of us was going to be recognized. That's how this industry works when people have class. The word class hung in the air like an indictment. Joy's composure was cracking visibly now. I'm just asking the questions that need to be asked. Someone has to hold people accountable. Accountable for what? For winning an Oscar? For being recognized after 20 years of work? What exactly am I being held accountable for here? For the narrative. For the way this win is being framed as some kind of historic moment when really what? Michael's voice was quiet but carried across the entire studio. Finish that sentence, Joy. When really what? Joy was silent. I'll finish it for you. When really you don't think I deserve it. When really you think the Academy got it wrong. When really you believe that a black man winning for a genre film somehow cheapens the award. That's what you're dancing around, isn't it? That's not what I said. It's exactly what you've been implying for the last 10 minutes. And I want you to know something. I've been dealing with people like you my entire career. People who see the face and the body and assume there's nothing else. People who dismiss my work because I don't fit their idea of what a serious actor looks like. People who move the goalposts every time I clear them. He stood up, but not to leave. He stood to make a point. When I was on the wire at 15, I gave a performance that still makes people cry 20 years later. Wallace's death is considered one of the most heartbreaking moments in television history. That kid trusted the wrong people and paid with his life. I carried that weight at 15 years old, dismissed as a child actor. When I did Fruitvale Station, playing Oscar Grant's final hours, critics said I was a revelation. I lived that man's last day. I made audiences feel his humanity so deeply that they wept in theaters. Still not enough for the Academy. He stood up straighter, the memories fueling him. For Creed, I trained like an actual professional boxer for over a year. I sparred with real fighters. I got hit for real. I transformed my body and learned a sport from scratch because that's what the role demanded. Ryan and I shot those fight scenes with minimal cuts because we wanted audiences to feel every punch. That franchise has made over $1 billion and introduced a new generation to Rocky's legacy. His voice intensified. And then Black Panther, where I created Eric Killmonger. A villain so compelling that audiences understood his pain even as they opposed his methods. I based that character on the real rage of Black Americans who've watched their communities be systematically destroyed. His famous line, "Bury me in the ocean with my ancestors who jumped from ships because they knew death was better than bondage." I wrote that line with Ryan. I felt it in my bones. And that movie changed what Hollywood thought was possible for Black stories. He shook his head slowly. Dismissed. All of it. Always some reason why the work wasn't enough. Why I wasn't enough. His voice grew stronger. And now I've won. I've stood on that stage and held that statue and thanked the people who made it possible. My mother was sitting next to me. My father flew in from Ghana to watch his son achieve his dream. And still, 48 hours later, I have to sit here and defend whether I deserve it. To someone who reduced my film to vampire movie without apparently understanding anything about what it actually says. He looked at Joy with something that wasn't anger. It was pity. You know what my mother said to me backstage after I won? She said, "Now they have to respect you." And I told her, "Mama, some people never will. And that's okay, because I know what I did. I know what it took, and no one can take that away from me. Not the critics, not the skeptics, not Joy Behar." The mention of her name as a category of obstacle landed hard. Joy's face went from flushed to pale. "I think you're being oversensitive. And I think you're being deliberately provocative because you expected an easy target. The fresh Oscar winner riding high on emotion. Maybe I'd say something defensive. Maybe I'd get angry and give you a clip. But Joy, I've been preparing for this moment my entire life. Not the Oscar. This. The moment when someone tried to take it away." He sat back down, his composure unshaken. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to sit here and finish this interview with Whoopi and Sarah, who have shown genuine happiness for my achievement. But I'm done engaging with whatever this was. You've made your point, and I've made mine." Joy stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I don't have to sit here and be lectured." "Then don't. But remember that you started this. You came at a man on what should be one of the happiest weeks of his life, and you tried to diminish his achievement. That's on you, not me." Joy looked around the studio, at her co-hosts who weren't offering any support, at the audience who sat in stunned silence, at the cameras that were capturing every moment of her unraveling. "This interview is over for me," she announced, removing her microphone. "The interview is over for you," Michael agreed. "But the conversation about respect and recognition and who gets to decide what's worthy, that conversation is just getting started. And I'll be part of it for a long time, with or without your approval." Joy walked off the set, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Michael watched her go with an expression of calm satisfaction, then turned back to the remaining hosts. "I'm sorry about that," he said, his voice warm again. "This was supposed to be a celebration." "It still is," Whoopi said firmly. "Don't you dare apologize. What we just witnessed was a man defending his legacy with dignity. That's exactly what an Oscar winner should be able to do." Sarah Haynes wiped her eyes again. "I want to say something. What you did in Sinners was extraordinary. The scene where Smoke realizes what Stack has sacrificed to protect him? I couldn't breathe. That wasn't genre. That was pure, devastating human truth. Michael nodded, visibly moved. That scene almost broke me. Ryan shot it in one take because he knew I couldn't do it again. When I watch it, I don't see acting. I see everything I've ever felt about brotherhood, about sacrifice, about the things we do for the people we love. He paused, remembering something. You know, after the ceremony, I went to In-N-Out with my Oscar. Just sat there eating a burger, taking pictures with people. Because that's who I am. That's who I've always been. The kid from Newark who loves this work and loves connecting with people. The statue doesn't change that. It just means more people might finally see what I've been doing all along. He looked directly into the camera, and his voice took on the weight of everything he had just been through. To anyone watching who's ever been told their work isn't worthy, their achievement isn't real, their success is a quota or a trend or a fluke, I want you to know something. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't have to justify your excellence to people who've already decided to doubt you. The work speaks. It always speaks. And eventually, it speaks louder than every voice trying to diminish it. The studio erupted in applause. Not the polite applause of a talk show audience, but something raw, something that sounded like vindication. In the days that followed, the interview would become a cultural moment. Michael B. Jordan defends Oscar win with grace would trend on every platform. His words about the work speaking for itself would be quoted by artists, athletes, and ordinary people who had ever felt their achievements diminished. Joy Behar would return to the show the next day without addressing what had happened. When pressed by viewers and critics, she would insist her questions were legitimate journalism about industry trends. The defense would only deepen the backlash, as clip after clip of Michael's measured, devastating responses circulated online. Ryan Coogler would post a simple message that would be shared millions of times. This is my brother. 5 films together. 20 years of friendship. And he handled that moment exactly the way he handles everything. With intelligence, dignity, and truth. That's why he's a champion. And Michael would continue doing what he had always done. Within a week of the interview, his production company announced 3 new projects. The work continued. The excellence continued. Because that was the lesson his entire career had taught him. No matter who tries to diminish it, no matter who questions its worth, the work is the only answer that matters. That was the real Michael B. Jordan, not the pretty face or the action star or even the Oscar winner. Just a man from Newark who had spent 2 decades proving that talent and beauty could coexist. That genre films could contain profound truth. That the only validation that mattered was the one you gave yourself through relentless, undeniable work. And who had proven, on live television, that you could defend your crown without ever losing your composure. What do you think about this incredible confrontation? Was Joy Behar out of line, or was she just doing her job? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more stories that will absolutely leave you speechless.